Today I'm going to show you how you can use sculpting to make tileable textures in Blender 2.8. So first of all, you're going to need to hit Shift A and add a plane. Next, I'm going to hit Control 5, and what that's going to do is it's going to add a subdivision surface modifier. And I'm going to go into the wrench for the modifiers, and I'm actually going to bring this up to 6. Now for this, I found that multi-resolution performed better than dynamic topology when making large strokes. And I found that splitting about half of the subdivisions in the actual model applied, go simple, and then doing the other half in a multi-resolution modifier, subdivide, 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 and so on until you get to 5. I found that this is what gave me optimal performance. Having half of it, maybe slightly more than half in the case of 6 to 5 for an 11, versus having it all in the multi-resolution or all in the actual base model. If you have it at 10, you'll get a 1024 by 1024 faces. However, we're going to use tiling to make it easier, so that'd be 512 by 512. So I went to 11 with the 6 subdivisions and 5 multi-resolution subdivisions to get 1024 without tiling. Now you can also take advantage of the smooth shading to help give you gradients to boost your resolution a little bit better. Now I need to make sure this is set to simple so that the vertices aren't rounded out. And I'm going to go to Sculpting tab. Next up, I'm going to go into the Symmetry Lock options, and I'm going to turn off the mirror. And I'm going to turn on Lock X and Y to make it so that the vertices can only go up and down on the Z axis. And I'm going to turn on Tiling X and Y so that it will tile. Now to start, I'm going to go to the top view and zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to use my brackets to lower this brush size. First, I'm going to go to my crease brush, and I'm going to go to stroke, and I'm going to turn it to line. I'm going to bring the strength up, and I'm going to start to draw a line. I'm going to draw it with holding Alt so that it is locked in angles. And I'm going to quickly go and draw some straight lines here because I'm going to make a tileable wooden floor, and I'm just going to go and draw these lines on the grid lines. Now the performance is going to be rather slowish when you're doing these big strokes. Now I can go and draw some in between little smaller lines here for in between the little planks of wood. And I was still using Alt to make sure that it was angle locked. Next, I'm going to go to my space stroke method, and I'm going to bring the input samples up to maybe 5 so that I get a smoother stroke. Even that has kind of some angles when I'm fast, so maybe I'll bring it to 10. So I'm going to now draw in some little curves to make this wooden look. Maybe have some going off. It'd actually be best to tend to stay towards the center rather than the edges. And now we have the base for the wood. Now I think maybe it would have been better if I went a little bit smaller, because I just noticed that this plank and this plank are going to be tiling again and again. However, you get the idea. So now we can go to our texture guy, add a new texture. Under type, I'm going to go from image to, or movie, and I'm actually going to go to clouds. And I'm going to take advantage of this to try to add maybe a little bit of extra detail. So maybe go a little bigger and just try to rough up the edges just a little in some spots. And you could try to rough up some of these edges, maybe where one of these parts splits. And actually, I might go to options and turn off fast navigate so that it doesn't get lower resolution while I'm navigating, since that's kind of annoying. Maybe the edges. And I can just rough certain bits up. This might actually be better more for like a brick. I could definitely use this for a brick and get some rough texture detail. Actually, in the texture settings, rather than view plane, I might prefer random to get my texture a little better looking. As you can see, it looks rougher there than if I had gone with the view plane. So let's use that, rough some of this up. And yeah, you can kind of see what I was going with there. And you can go on to the edges and get a better look. I could even go and rough up the side edges some. Just lightly pressing on my tablet elsewhere. Get some dingsing. Maybe somebody dropped something heavy there. And as you can see, there's a lot you can do with this, and this is especially good for something like a brick wall or a rough wood, or maybe some damaged material like a damaged wall. These types of things that are kind of hard to draw when you're making your handmade textures, but might be easier when you try to sculpt these textures. So now that I'm done sculpting this, I can actually just go to layout modeling again, hit Shift A, and add another plane. I'm going to tab into edit mode, hit S to scale, then type in 0.5 to make it half the size. Tab back into object mode. Let's go to the shading tab and grab this material here. Maybe hit 2, make it duplicated. And I'm just going to hit Shift A to add, search, and I'm going to type in image. Now we're going to want to add in a new texture. I'm going to call this normal. And I'll view it here. Now you're going to want to make sure that you have this texture node selected while you bake. So now we can go to this camera and go to our render engine, set it to cycles, and then we have a bake option at the bottom. So we can go to bake type, normal, and now I will go and select first the sculpted plane, and then shift select the smaller non-sculpted plane, and then I can go hit selected to active under bake. Now under sampling, I got my render and viewport samples, and if I lower this, it'll get faster with my bake. So I'll just have it 1 for the tutorial so that it bakes fastly, and then I hit bake. And now we got our normal map. So now if I move this guy and I attach this normal map to a normal map node, drag the color into the color, the normal into the normal, and now we got the texture for this, and it looks just like this one. And you can see that it tiles fine. If I go to my display, repeat image, you'll see it tiles fine. Right here's the edge. If I duplicate with Shift D this and added a new texture by hitting 2 to duplicate the texture. I can rename this to AO, and if I get rid of these and move this back to the center, I can go and bake some other maps for it, such as an ambient occlusion. Go and select this, then that, select it to active, hit bake. Now this one's not going to look that good because my samples are way too small for this. As you can see, it looks like just a bunch of dots. But if I brought this to say 20 and hit bake, now 20 is still not good. We still got kind of noisy dotty. But you could use this as a mask for painting things out so that you could have the edges separated. Next, I can go and hide the original, and I could just go to the texture paint tab. Now if you want to add your coloring, you can simply go to the texture paint tab, hit new, base color, and then you're going to want to go to the modifiers tab, add array, and then you're going to want to copy this to duplicate it, and then you're going to want to change this 1 into a 0 and this 0 into a 1 so that you have a square. Next, you go back to your paint tools. First off, you need your bleed to be set to 0, otherwise you will have issues where the bleed causes it to not tile correctly. And you can go turn off the overlay so you can see the shading. To go overlay, opacity, bring it down, hit Z, go to look dev. Now you can see your normal mapping there, and I can now paint it tileable. I can go check here, and you can see that it tiles. One thing to keep in mind is that if you go off one of the actual edges, it won't tile. So maybe you might have wanted to add more to your array. So I can keep painting. Now I can maybe go with a lighter one and just add some bits of color in there so that I can add some dirtiness to the look. And now I can actually go into my mask, and I can select my ambient occlusion mask, and now if I maybe go with a darker color, it will actually try to paint just in the mask. So you can see that I have lines going where the lines were. So maybe if I turn the strength up a little, you might be able to see this easier. And you can see that where I had the lines before, it's adding it in. So I can use this and take advantage of some of the ambient occlusion to add things like the lines in between the planks of wood. Or perhaps maybe if you had bricks, like the little caulk in between the bricks. I could maybe even go and use a different color here for the maybe a brighter color for the little lines in between, since they'll have some. Maybe if I turn this up to like strength of 3, it might be more noticeable, so you can see a little bit of the lines for the wood. If I get closer and still using the ambient occlusion mask, it will go here. Now, of course, turning up the samples on the ambient occlusion mask would give you better results here. And now I highlighted those bits a little bit. So that's starting to look pretty good. I could even go and add a roughness map. And again, take advantage of this and maybe make the in-between parts rough and the top parts smoother. So in roughness, if you have closer to 1, it's rougher, and if you have closer to 0 or black, it is smoother. And I can turn off the mask, and I'm going to use some black and just add some blackness to this roughness map. just add a little bit of variation by doing it lightly. Turn down the strength. So that you get a little bit of variation in your roughness. Now I can go and turn on the mask. Turn on white so I can paint in between these areas and get some nice, a much rougher look there rather than smoothness. And then if I go turn down the overlay and go into my look dev mode, you can see the nice detail. I might actually have gone too smooth with this floor, so I might turn that down in the shading area and just turn the roughness down with a Shift A search color ramp. Put that there and bring some of the whites down and make it fairly shiny, but not totally. Anyway, so now we got a nice painted floor, as you can see. So hopefully this gave you guys an idea of how you can use sculpting to your advantage to make nice handmade tileable textures. This was MrTriPie, and thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help me grow. Thank you.